Ladies and gentlemen, there is something profoundly rare in this world, something that cannot be manufactured or imitated. It is the aura of those who are spiritually awakened. When such people enter a room, you feel an invisible presence, quiet yet unmistakable, subtle yet transformative. Their words may be few, their actions ordinary, but the depth of their being radiates a light that cannot be concealed. This aura is not born of wealth, power, or intellect, but from a reconciliation of the soul with its innermost truth. And today, I want to share with you 3 essential keys that explain the nature of this rare aura. The aura of the spiritually awakened does not arise from external accomplishments, nor from the admiration of society. It emerges from a place far deeper, a place often hidden from the conscious mind. The reconciliation of the human being with the totality of the self. To awaken spiritually is not to construct a new identity of perfection, but rather to walk courageously into the hidden chambers of the soul where all contradictions dwell. This journey is not glamorous. It is often painful, filled with moments of confusion, despair, and confrontation with aspects of the self that the ordinary mind seeks to suppress. Yet it is precisely this descent into the interior darkness, this willingness to meet what we fear, that plants the seed of an aura unlike any other. You see, most people spend their lives at war with themselves. They cling to an image of who they want to be and fiercely deny the aspects of their being that do not align with that image. They project their inner conflicts onto the world, condemning in others what they cannot accept in themselves. But the spiritually awakened are different. They have ceased this exhausting war. Instead of rejecting the shadow, they turn toward it with honesty. They face the memories they would rather forget, the impulses they would rather deny, the wounds they would rather conceal. They recognize that within the shadow lies not only darkness, but also lost vitality, creativity, and truth. When such a person integrates what was once hidden, they no longer walk divided. They no longer wear endless masks to please the world or to protect themselves. Their presence becomes authentic, free of pretense, and this authenticity is what gives rise to the aura that surrounds them. It is not something they consciously project, it radiates naturally, as light does from a flame. When you encounter such a person, you sense that you are in the company of someone whole, someone who has touched the deepest ground of their being and returned. The reconciliation with the self is not merely a psychological adjustment, it is a transformation of the very center of consciousness. Before such reconciliation, a person is like a fragmented mirror, reflecting distorted images of reality. Afterward, the fragments are rejoined, and the reflection becomes clear. From this clarity arises a quiet confidence, a peace that is not dependent on circumstances, and a gravity that draws others in without force. Their aura is not bright in the sense of flamboyance. It is luminous in the sense of depth, like the steady glow of embers that have burned through the night. What is most striking is that such individuals do not escape suffering, they transform it. They have discovered that pain is not a curse but a teacher. They have learned to sit with grief without being consumed by it, to endure fear without fleeing, to encounter loneliness without despair, and in this endurance, they uncover a resilience that is far greater than mere endurance. It is a resilience born of understanding that every shadow is balanced by light, every wound carries the potential for wisdom, and every loss can open a door to deeper love. When they walk among others, this understanding is felt even if not spoken. Their aura communicates silently. You too can endure. You too can integrate what you fear. You too can find peace not by running from yourself, but by embracing all that you are. It is this silent communication that makes their presence transformative. Words are not necessary, for their very being speaks a language older than speech, the language of wholeness. Consider how rare it is to meet someone who is not hiding from themselves. Most conversations are veiled, most smiles guarded, most gestures rehearsed. But when you meet the spiritually awakened, you encounter someone transparent, not because they reveal everything about themselves, but because they hide nothing essential. Their aura does not demand attention, it invites trust. It does not seek to impress, it seeks to connect. This is why the reconciliation with the self is the foundation of the aura of awakening. Without it, any attempt at spirituality becomes a mask, another persona, another way of escaping what lies within. But with it, spirituality ceases to be an escape and becomes an embrace. And that embrace creates an energy, a presence, a rare aura that cannot be manufactured or imitated. It can only arise from the courage to enter one's own depths and emerge whole. So when we speak of the rare aura of spiritually awakened people, we are speaking of this deep inner reconciliation. It is the victory not of conquest, but of surrender. Surrender to the truth of one's own being. And from that surrender comes the quiet radiance that we recognize instantly when we encounter it, even if we cannot explain it. The second quality that shapes the rare aura of spiritually awakened people is compassion, but not the simple kindness that is often confused with sentiment. Their compassion does not arise from duty, nor is it performed for recognition. It is born out of the deep confrontation with their own wounds, and the slow healing that comes when one has wrestled with suffering and emerged transformed. This kind of compassion is raw, authentic, and unshakable because it is not theoretical, it is lived. Most people offer compassion when it costs little, when it does not threaten their comfort or challenge their own illusions. They sympathize from a distance, speaking kind words while guarding themselves against true vulnerability. But the spiritually awakened have no need for such defenses. They have been broken open by their own journey inward. They know what it means to feel rejected, lost, or consumed by fear. They know the taste of failure, the heaviness of despair, the terror of being misunderstood. Because they have faced these inner experiences, they can no longer look upon another person's suffering with indifference. Their aura reflects this lived compassion. When they encounter someone in pain, they do not shrink away. Their presence itself becomes a balm, not because they solve problems, but because they do not judge. They do not measure who is worthy of kindness and who is not, for they have seen the shadow in themselves and recognized it in others. What others condemn, they understand. What others fear, they embrace. In their gaze, you do not feel the weight of criticism, but the spaciousness of acceptance. This kind of compassion is not blind to wrongdoing. The spiritually awakened are not naive. They perceive cruelty, dishonesty, and arrogance with clarity, yet they look beyond the surface. They recognize that destructive actions often spring from inner wounds, that hatred is often the mask of fear, and that arrogance is often a fragile shield for inadequacy. Their compassion does not excuse harm, but it sees the human being behind the mask, the wounded soul behind the armor. In doing so, they disarm hostility not with argument but with presence. To stand near such a person is to feel understood without explanation. Their aura communicates something wordless. I see you as you are, and I do not turn away. This silent recognition dissolves the barriers people usually construct to protect themselves. A hardened heart begins to soften, not because of persuasion, but because the burden of judgment has been lifted. Their compassion becomes contagious, stirring others to consider forgiveness where they once clung to resentment, or understanding where they once harbored suspicion. What is striking is that this compassion is not sentimental indulgence. It is grounded in strength. The spiritually awakened do not lose themselves in another's suffering, nor are they swept away by pity. Their compassion is steady, like the current of a deep river, always moving, always present, but never frantic. They can hold another's grief without being consumed, because they have learned to hold their own. This steadiness is what makes their aura rare. Most people either drown in another's pain or avoid it altogether, but the awakened carry it with grace, balancing empathy with wisdom. The aura of such compassion alters the atmosphere of every interaction. In their company, arguments lose their sharpness, hostility loses its fire, and fear loosens its grip. This is not because they silence others, but because their presence radiates a calm strength that makes conflict unnecessary. People begin to mirror the peace they feel around them. The spiritually awakened do not demand this change. It happens naturally, as though their compassion creates a field of energy where harshness cannot easily survive. It is also important to note that their compassion extends not only to individuals but to life itself. They have ceased fighting the reality of existence. They embrace the cycles of joy and sorrow, gain and loss, birth and death. Their compassion is cosmic in scale, encompassing all of humanity, and even beyond, to the earth, to creatures, to the rhythm of nature itself. Their aura carries the fragrance of this vast acceptance, making those around them feel not only loved but also part of a larger, interconnected whole. When you encounter such a person, you may notice that your own guard begins to fall. You feel safer in their presence, not because they promise to protect you, but because their aura awakens in you the courage to face yourself without shame. And this is perhaps the greatest gift of their compassion. It liberates others to extend the same kindness to themselves. Where before there was self-condemnation, there emerges the possibility of forgiveness. Where there was alienation, there emerges connection. The spiritually awakened are rare not because compassion is rare in the world, but because this depth of compassion is born only through the hard work of facing one's own shadow and transmuting it into light. It cannot be faked, nor can it be performed. It flows naturally when the heart has been broken and rebuilt, when the soul has embraced its own contradictions and chosen to love anyway. And it is this deep compassion, carried silently yet powerfully in their aura, that transforms every encounter into an invitation to awaken. Here's the expanded version of Keynote 3, written in the same Carl Jung-inspired reflective style, without headings and reaching beyond 600 words. The rarest quality of spiritually awakened people is that their aura inspires transformation not through persuasion or deliberate effort, but simply by being. They do not stand before others with the intent to preach or convert, nor do they seek to impose their beliefs. Their presence alone stirs something unspoken within the hearts of those who encounter them. It is as if their very existence whispers a forgotten truth to others, awakening memories of a deeper self that had long been buried under layers of fear, distraction, and illusion. Most of us live within the patterns of our conditioning. We move through life caught in habits of thought, chasing desires, defending fears, and wearing masks to protect our fragile sense of self. Rarely do we pause to question whether these masks are real, whether the identity we so desperately protect is even authentic. But when we encounter someone who has shed their masks, someone who has embraced the totality of their being and walks freely in their own truth, something within us cannot help but stir. Their aura unsettles the illusions we cling to and awakens the longing to live with the same authenticity. This transformation does not happen with dramatic gestures. It happens in subtle ways. A conversation with such a person may linger in the heart, long after the words are forgotten. A moment in their presence may open a window in the mind, a sudden clarity that life can be lived differently. Even their silence has weight, carrying the power to calm the restless chatter of the mind. Their aura serves as a mirror, reflecting back to others the possibility of their own awakening. They remind us that the path is not outside but within, and that the light we seek in others already dwells in ourselves. The power of their aura lies in its authenticity. We live in a world saturated with voices that demand attention, voices of authority, of charisma, of performance. These voices often dazzle, but their influence is fleeting, for they rest on external force rather than inner truth. The aura of the spiritually awakened is different. It carries no demand, no compulsion. It does not seek followers, it calls forth equals. It resonates with a frequency that bypasses the intellect and touches the soul directly, stirring the hidden seeds of transformation that lie dormant in every human being. To be in the presence of such a person is to feel simultaneously challenged and comforted. Challenged because their authenticity exposes our own compromises. We begin to notice the ways in which we have betrayed ourselves, the masks we have worn too long, the voices we obey that are not truly ours. Comforted because their very being assures us that it is possible to live otherwise. They embody a freedom that proves it is not only an ideal, but a reality attainable to those who dare to face themselves. Their aura whispers, "You too can awaken. You too can be free." The transformation they inspire is not instantaneous. It may unfold quietly, like seeds planted in the soil of the heart, germinating unseen until the conditions are right. A single encounter may echo for years, resurfacing in moments of crisis or clarity, reminding us of who we might become. This is why the aura of the spiritually awakened is so rare and so powerful. It is not a force that fades with time, but one that deepens the longer it resonates within us. What makes this aura transformative is that it speaks to what is universal. It does not appeal to superficial identities, social roles, or cultural boundaries. It speaks to the timeless essence of the human soul. Regardless of background, belief, or circumstance, those who encounter the awakened sense a connection to something larger than themselves, something that transcends the divisions that ordinarily define us. This universality is what allows their presence to awaken transformation in anyone who is open, for it bypasses the surface differences and calls directly to the core of our being. Yet it is important to understand that the spiritually awakened do not consciously seek this effect. They are not strategists of influence. Their aura is not cultivated like a performance. It is the natural consequence of their inner work. Having reconciled their shadow, having embraced compassion, they radiate an energy that needs no effort. It is effortless in the truest sense, for it flows from the wholeness of their being. They are like a tree that bears fruit without striving, simply because it is rooted deeply in fertile soil. When we speak of the rare aura of spiritually awakened people, it is this capacity to inspire transformation through mere presence that reveals its highest power. They remind us, often without words, that awakening is not a distant dream reserved for saints, but a possibility available to every soul willing to turn inward. They live as proof that integration, compassion, and authenticity are not ideals to be admired from afar, but realities that can be embodied. Thus, their aura is not a gift for themselves alone, but a light for others, guiding without command, inspiring without demand, transforming without effort. And when we encounter it, we are left with a choice: to retreat into the safety of our illusions, or to begin the journey inward, toward the awakening that waits within us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the rare aura of spiritually awakened people is not a gift of fate, nor a privilege reserved for saints. It is the fruit of inner reconciliation, compassion without judgment, and the transformative presence that emerges when one is truly aligned with the depths of the soul. When you encounter such an aura, recognize it, cherish it, and most importantly, let it remind you of the awakening that awaits within yourself. For what is rare in the world is not impossible. It is only rare because few dare to undertake the journey inward. Thank you.